Welcome to the Sarra Show. In today's episode, I'm in a spontaneous conversation with Philip Bartu, my friend and fellow coach who happened to be in Miami as I was getting prepared to kick off the show. To be honest, I'm not sure entirely why I'm doing this show, but I'm doing it from a place of fun and not lingering in the why. It's exciting, it's fun, it's authentic, it's spontaneous, and I've grown so much and learned so much since I started doing this that's all that matters, honestly. So today, I'm honored to have Philip as my first guest. He is a sea of wisdom. We spoke for such a long time, so we'll release this conversation in 2 episodes. This is episode 1 of 2. Welcome everyone to the Sarra Show. Philip, I can't even believe you're here.
Well, what a surprise. I can't believe it myself, and I want to start by just saying, hey, congratulations for having the courage to follow the inspiration and creating this podcast, and I'm honored to be here as your first guest today. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for the acknowledgement. We're here to have some fun.
Yes, we are.
Right?
So yeah, I mean that's actually like the whole idea of doing this. When I just before we hit record, you said I want to have fun.
Uh-huh.
So what's the inspiration behind this podcast?
Having fun.
Okay.
Rediscovering that kid inside, not taking things so seriously. Just seeing what comes up from experiencing fun. What shows up when you stand for fun.
Right. Okay. Woo! I feel like a little lighter in my chair as you say that. It's like, oh, okay. I'll just relax into that. For me, the first thing that comes is just total relaxation. That's fun for me. Like living in a state of just being relaxed and spontaneous to what's here in front of me. What I love about these conversations, and I have to say every conversation to me I've had with you has always been just really enriching, and I've always left with a sense of just feeling a deeper connection to myself.
Mm. Yeah. That's true for me too. Every time we talk, our conversations are deep and they're fun and they're light in a sense where it's just easy for me to say what's present.
And, we have a way of calling each other out where we could just laugh about things. And, I think that's also, there's something about the word fun that can feel a little superficial, like, oh, let's have fun. It can be a bit of a forced thing, but I like to approach just fun as just, it's fun when I can be myself, when I can be comfortable in my skin, when I can be authentic. And you occurred to me as one of the most authentic people I know. Mm. And it's fun when you can live your life just being yourself. Yeah. And it's messy.
Yeah. And, when you say being yourself, that can mean so many things.
Right. I think what I'm really saying there is just being authentic. When I say being myself, it's like there's, that's confusing. I think being yourself is something I wouldn't really know what that means, other than I just feel natural, and I'm not trying or forcing, just letting things flow through me.
Mm. Yeah. there's that time where we decided it's not okay to be me. Right? There's that time when we made that decision.
Yes.
Do you remember when it was for you?
Very clearly.
Can you share?
Yeah, I was 13 years old, living in Singapore, and my parents had made the decision after 10 years living there, we're moving to Paris. No one wanted to move to Paris. And at the age of 13, what was most important for me was to fit in. And the first thing I did when my mum showed me the school book of the American School of Paris, all I saw was these people dress different. I don't want to be different. And so I said to my mum, I want to go shopping. Now in Singapore, there are no winter clothes. And I just remember that feeling of anxiety, thinking, oh, but I'm so different. And that being me in that moment was no longer okay. And I had to look at how can I talk, dress, and be like an American. And you wouldn't believe it, I had the most convincing American accent for a year. At the age of 14, I spoke like an American. You wouldn't believe that I'm not American.
How did you come up with the accent?
Oh, I just learned it because I was in an American school, so all my friends were American, but it just didn't stop there. I was talking about American TV shows and talking about baseball and football and stuff I really didn't know much about, but I had put so much pressure on myself to be this perfect American, and after a year, I was really this real little American kid. And my parents were devastated. And they were like, what have we done to this boy? And they hated it. And so they took me out and they put me in the British School of Paris. And I did the same thing. And that's why I sound like this. That's why I have such a British accent.
You do have a British accent.
Yeah, it's because I went then and I moved from the American School of Paris to the British School of Paris. And I did the same thing. And I then had to invent who I am and change my accent, change the way I dressed. And that has really been since the age of 12. Being me wasn't a concept I had. It was about how can I fit in. And that's so exhausting. What was it for you?
You know, for me, it was a much younger age. So I was in French school back in Morocco.
Yeah.
And it was a French private school. It was the only one in my city. And then they shut down. So my parents had no choice but to move me to a public Moroccan school.
Yeah.
And it was traumatizing. Because it was the French school was smaller. You know, I went from about maybe 10 of us in the classroom where we did everything in French and with super nice teachers to about 30 of us in the classroom and everything was in Arabic. And the teachers were a lot more aggressive and even abusive, like even physically abusive. And it was a shock.
Yeah, of course.
For me. And, talking about fitting in, for me, it was a decisive moment. I remember exactly, it was this teacher who didn't like me at all. I mean, mind you, I was only 7 or 8. And I didn't know how to do math or count in Arabic. It was all in French, so I'll do it in French. And she would bring me up front to the front of the classroom and ask me to count in Arabic. And I'm like, I don't know. And she will humiliate me in front of everyone. And then she also had this way of hitting us with a stick,
oh my God.
Put your hand up, volunteer your hand.
Yeah.
And she would just hit with a stick. But the most brutal form of physical abuse she had, this particular teacher, is if you, let's say you forgot your homework or you forgot the textbook or something, or what, it depends on her mood. If she judges it was worthy of a bad punishment, then she would take us to the back of the classroom where there was an empty table, like a long empty table, and you'd sit on the table. You'll remove your shoes and your socks so the soles of your feet are exposed, and she'll hit you with the stick there. And for me, that was the most humiliating form of punishment.
So that's when life started to get a little serious. Like, there are consequences to me misbehaving.
Yeah.
And because we started this conversation really around like when did you start to notice it wasn't okay to be yourself?
Or to have fun.
Or to have fun, right?
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden then you were punished if you were really just letting loose, having a good time.
Yeah, exactly. The system I was in was very different before. We were allowed to have fun, to do whatever we wanted, basically. And we weren't punished like that. And I remember that one day, I'm not sure exactly what I did, but she decided that I was going to receive that punishment. So she sent me to the back of the classroom in front of 30 kids. Me being the newest kid, asked me to remove my shoes and socks and started hitting me.
Gosh.
And I remember that, that moment, I decided that it was not okay for me to be me anymore. It's almost kind of like she violated me, and it was no longer okay for me to have fun. Like my innocence.
Yeah.
That's the day I lost my innocence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're sharing that story, I'm also hearing like that's such a big difference to feeling like I don't belong here.
Oh yeah, I don't belong here. She doesn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been humiliated. I'm embarrassed. I can't be myself anymore. I mean, name it.
Oh my God, I would have gotten in so much trouble in that school.
I don't know. With that sort of punishment, you kind of stop yourself from being you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, in a way, it was an effective way to get you to comply with rules and regulations.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm still in the process of forgiving her.
I hear you.
And it's crazy? Like, this memory for me didn't come back. It came back to me in my sleep, like in a dream. It was so suppressed, so down there, so real and heavy. It was like that was a major separation between me and me.
Yeah.
And it came back to me in a dream, and it was so vivid. And I was like, that's what happened to me, But it was a relief too, because once I realized, I was able to see who I was prior to that. And I was able to connect back to her, and how, we talk about declarations and whatnot. And what came through me was like, oh, I'm fun, and I'm sweet, and I'm funny. Those are like three major things that she took away from me that day, or I decided I could no longer be.
Yeah, this, just listening to you and from what I know of you, I can see how deep and profound that experience was for your life. And I can see how that created this level of always needing to do things hard. And for it like if it's fun, then it's not work. Because I've been, with that, like there's stories that we create from that, right? And I can imagine. I mean, I'm thinking of my life as well, and how, when I met my father-in-law, the first thing he asked me, my Christina, who's now my wife, the first day we met in a restaurant, and we had just finished a meal. And he looked at me and he said, "So, Philip," at this point, Christina left and went to the toilet. "I need to ask you something." is this a serious relationship? And he wasn't ready for what came out of my mouth. I was like, serious? Well, it's not. I was like, why would I want a serious relationship? I want a fun relationship. I want a light-hearted relationship. I want a playful relationship. I don't want a serious relationship. Hell no.
told him that?
I answered that way. Now, if you're asking if it's a committed relationship, yes, it is. But I never want to be in a serious relationship.
What did he say to that?
He hated it.
Oh, my God.
But, that for me was also just honoring what was true for me in that moment and allowing myself to not say what I want him to hear. Mm-hmm. See, before, if talking about, what does it mean to be yourself? It means that I can answer that question based on what's actually true for me, not how I want to be perceived as, my neediness to be loved and accepted. That can become an inauthentic way of being that requires me to be manipulative. And I know I'm really good at that. I've been really, really good at that. My background is hotels and restaurants and hospitality, but the way I did it was I became a professional people pleaser, and damn, I was good at that. They call it the service industry. I call it the pleasing industry, because it was really, and nothing wrong with that. But I knew how to. It was my way of surviving in this world. I knew how to be charming. I knew how to get people's approval. And when I got to decide that was no longer fun for me, to be loved for who I am pretending to be is not fun for me. I would rather be upset. I'd rather have someone be upset with me for who I am than love me for who I'm not.
Amen.
How can parenting be fun? How can I enjoy this moment? And I haven't figured that out yet, Sarah. I tell you, I often get woken up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I notice I call it a poor me party. I throw a party about poor me. Here I am again, waking up in the middle of the night, and I just started noticing how that was just taking away the joy of being with my son. And yeah, it happens a lot. I'm up a lot at night. Or not a lot, not as much as my wife. She heard me say that. I can actually hear my wife saying right now as I say that, I can hear her say, "You're up a lot. What about me?" So she's up more than me. But what happens is as I just brought more awareness to just that being fun, I've noticed that there's never really been a moment where I'm with my son. He's crying. I'm sitting there on a bouncing chair trying to soothe him. And I've just stopped feeling sorry for myself. I just gave that up, Sarah.
So let me ask you about that. You call that the poor me party. I call it the self-pity party.
Yeah, the self-pity party.
Yeah. And every one of us loves doing it.
Right.
I don't know why we love doing it.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, it gives us something. We'll get into that in a second. But something about the self-pity party that we're addicted to.
Yeah.
And we go into this place inside of us.
Yeah.
And it's party of one, right? Because no one else is there. It's party of one. It's just me and me.
Yeah.
And it's almost a way of connecting.
Yeah.
And I just go there and I just hang out there. And then, you say, I just give that up. Probably people in here, you're saying that and they're like, yeah, right. How do you do that? How do you just give that up? You can't just give that up.
Yeah.
It's such an addiction.
Yeah.
This party of one place, self-pity party, is so addictive.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you what happened last night. My wife kindly did the washing. And in Europe, we hang our washing. And here, everything is in tumblers. So we're not used to using these tumblers. And something happened in the setting that everything came out and it was super shrunk.
You mean the dryer?
The dryer, the dryer. So all my clothes were like super shrunk. Okay, so here I wear a t-shirt to go to bed. So I put the t-shirt on, and as I'm lying down, there's basically an open space in my back because my t-shirt is so small. And in that moment, I threw a poor me party, like, poor me, I have to sleep with this shrunken t-shirt. Poor me, my t-shirts are ruined. And in that moment, I had this thought, don't sweat the small stuff. And that just made me crack up. And it was the first thing I said to my wife this morning when I woke up. I was like, don't sweat the small stuff. And here I am sweating the small stuff about my shrunken t-shirts.
You know, when you have someone who's pissed or who's fully involved in party of one, poor me party, right? And you say, don't sweat the small stuff. That makes them more angry.
Oh, yeah. That's the last thing. Up. Oh, give it up. Oh, that's the last thing. Yeah, it's so unhelpful. It's so unhelpful. So what I'm saying is that was just the process. I went from having a self-pity party to just, that phrase just came to me and it just cracked me up.
Yeah.
And in a way, that party then just there was just such a, and so today, we actually went and I got some new clothes and it was a fun experience. But it's what do we do when we are throwing ourselves a poor me party? How do we shift that for it to get out of that, for it to be fun? Yeah.
What do we do?
Let
me tell you how I picture it, you know?
Yeah.
Because first of all, this party of one that happens inside of you, it's like in this dark room. It's, at least for me, it's how I see it. And the question is like, how do I get out of this dark room? The more you get into like, I should do this, I should do that. The more you should in on yourself, the more it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The more you're trying to find a strategy to get out of it, the less it's likely to work. You know, sometimes it kind of like it did for you, it just dawns on you. I'm sweating the small stuff and you start cracking up and you're out of the dark room.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're trying so hard.
Yeah.
And you just can't. And the stories just keep on adding up. And the evidence, you start seeing evidence everywhere for why it's poor me.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Life looks a certain way. Evidence gets brought up. You've got a strong case.
Yeah.
Don't come to me with don't sweat the small stuff.
Exactly. It's serious.
Yeah.
Now you're in the it's serious phase. This is really happening. And it's real as it's occurring to me.
Yeah.
It's real. So what do you do?
Well, I can tell you what I usually do that doesn't work at all is I fall into that spiral. And I've been catching myself more lately to when that happens. What I found has been the most helpful is just to acknowledge the frustration, because it's usually some frustration that's been built up. So I acknowledge the frustration, I acknowledge the disappointment, I acknowledge whatever feeling I'm feeling, and I make that okay. Because if I'm trying to change how I'm feeling by messing around with my circumstances, by changing the outcome, it's at best it can just, you know, it's dependent on something outside of me, and I'm really then a victim. Mm-hmm. And at best is my victim story is working in my favor, but I'm still a victim because I'm trying to see if I can give you an example of this just to make it more real. Coming here, I was with my wife and she asked me to drop her off at Coconut Grove, and I saw that there wouldn't be enough time to do both, to be here on time and drop her off. And I noticed that she started throwing a poor me party. And I could have, and I noticed that I started joining her, throwing a poor me party because I want to honor my commitment and be here on time, and I'm not able to. And I got to just say, oh, I'm frustrated. Oh, in that moment, I got frustrated. I just got to say, hey, I'm noticing that I'm really frustrated. That you're making, like, I'm not. I want to honor that request, but I'm not able to. And I'm frustrated that I can't do that. You know, as I say that now, when I'm just really honoring the frustration, the disappointment, the feeling, it's no longer running the show. It's like, oh, okay, that I can just be with that. I can actually just be with what I'm feeling. And that goes. And I'm just back here without my poor me pity party stuff. And then I can actually become compassionate and loving towards myself and others. And rather than trying to please and yeah, I just allow myself. Yeah, there's just so much more compassion towards myself and her. It was a pretty poor example, but it's just the one that came.
It's a great example. What are you talking about? It's an amazing example. It's real. It just happened.
Well, it's just what's fresh, you know.
No, it's a great example. And you know what? As you were talking, what came to me was the more we try and change it, the harder it is, right? The more we just kind of like talking about authenticity and just being you and being okay or present, not even okay, but present with whatever is there.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about presence. Then it moves, right? Because an emotion is an energy.
And, you know, as you say that, there cannot be presence and defensiveness at the same time. Those two things cannot coexist. And typically, in an attack, we defend ourselves. Mm-hmm. This is the way to protect ourselves. And so just to come back to this example, she was like, oh, but there's a place I want to see that's a childhood memory that's dear to my heart. Okay? So here I am driving and like realizing we're not going to make it. No, I had actually arrived. We're already here at the studio, and I just say, I get that that's really important for you, and that you would love that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't take you there now. Now I don't like say, I don't try to fix her or give her solutions and at the time, so like you say, it's just being present with the emotion that's here. Yeah. And just being okay with that.
Not try and fix it, not try and figure it out, not try and make it anything, make it mean anything. And not go on that guilt trip.
And it requires an ability for you to be okay with other people being upset with you.
Yeah. Talking about being a people pleaser, right?
Yeah.
And overcoming that.
Yeah.
You know, like that's probably something you couldn't have done in the past had you not done all the work you did on yourself. You know what I mean? Because, right, here she is feeling a certain way. And if you were still a people pleaser, then you'll just be crushed over it.
Oh, I would have been late. I would have tried to please her and at the same time honor my commitment. And then I would arrive really rushed, stuck in traffic because I'm not thinking straight, so I would have missed the turn, because that's what happens when I'm stressed. I'm not able to really just think clearly, and then the whole experience just takes away the fun. Because I override my need for what I need right now. And that's really an act of self-love in the being willing for others to be upset. It's an act of self-love. Yeah, being willing to put boundaries on what I'm able to do and not able to do.
Next week on The Sarra Show.
What is that line between discipline,
Yeah.
right, and commitment and integrity and letting loose?